Is Troy going to be here tonight?
Just a little late. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm going to take this off to speak to the mic. It is 6 o'clock, and I'm calling the board meeting of the Longview Trustees to order. If you would please rise with me for the invocation and the pledge. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for all the things that you give to us, all the blessings. Do what is best for it.
Allegiance to the flag of America, republic for which it
Texas flag is to be Thank you. Dr. Wilcox.
Thank you very much. We're going to start tonight's superintendent's report off with an update on our IB training and what we're doing with IB in the district. And we have Linda Bowie here tonight. And she is the Chief Executive Officer for TCIS here in Longview and also a long-time Longview employee.
Dr. Wilcox. It's so nice to see people. I can't tell you. Okay, I've got a kind of a two-pronged approach for the meeting tonight. I want to start, as Dr. Wilcox said, to give you an update on where we are in our journey to IB authorization. I want you to have no fear that even in the coronavirus pandemic, we have worked and worked and worked. Our teachers have continued to write unit planners, they have Zoomed, we have Google Classroomed, we have done all sorts of things to stay on track. In June, we were able to hold some virtual site visits because we had scheduled site visits. And so we had the site visits. Each campus was scheduled for 2 days. Some campuses had 2 consultants, others had 1 consultant. And they scheduled, our coordinators did a wonderful job of scheduling time with not only the administrative teams of the campuses, the planning teams, the leadership teams, but then they spent about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes with each subject area. So the primary year's campuses scheduled times with the first grade teachers and then second grade, and it extended over the 2-day period. And they would get back together and debrief. And then they debriefed on the last day to talk about plans and where they stood. I had logins for all of the meetings, so I was able to pop in and out and to observe what was going on at all the campuses at some time or the other. And it was so exciting to see that happening, just like the consultants were there. And then we worked with our administrative team here, and we were able on the 24th and 25th of June to actually do on-site unit planning writing days. And this is the first time I think any IB school has actually done this, where they schedule days with consultants to work with the teachers to do unit writing planning. And teachers, I just put it out there. We paid them a stipend of $100 a day. I put it out there hoping to get 150 to 200. We actually got 350 people to sign up. At the last minute, several were unable to come for some reason or the other. But we were on every campus. We all wore masks. We were socially distanced. And it's just so exciting to see the work that came out of that. At the high school, writing our middle use plan for the 9th and 10th grades, some of our teachers actually came up with an interdisciplinary unit on the coronavirus. And they're going to do a unit that looks at, in literature, the different kinds of literature that's been written about viruses, about plagues, because there's a lot out there. The math is going to look at all the, all the graphs for the spikes and where it hit first and all of that. Science is going to look at the science part of it, and so they're really excited about, and talk about being relevant. I think it's going to be very relevant for students to actually get in there and get to do some of that. So you should be really excited about what the teachers are continuing to do. We've got actual on-site training planned for August the 10th and 11th for all the teachers in the district. For those that had November, they'll do the next level of training. For those that were not able to participate in November, then they'll do the Category 1, but everyone will be participating. The goal is still to submit our authorization applications to IB in October, and right now every school is on track to do that. So it's really an exciting time for us. Now, I'm not going to take long, but I just wanted to take another minute to share with you try to share a little bit of IB with you each time. I think we looked earlier at one of the earlier meetings about the transdisciplinary themes in the primary years programs and the middle years programs, the global context that was in your board packet. Every PYP school across the world is using these same transdisciplinary themes. And so teachers write unit planners based on one of these themes. Who are we? Where are we in place and time? How we organize ourselves. And so all of those themes fit with every single subject area and every single grade level. The middle years concepts are identities and relationships, orientation in space and time, globalization and sustainability, fairness and development, which is very crucial right now. So all of these themes across the world, our middle year students are working under, which is really exciting. And then finally, we talked about the learner profile, and I still have your learner profile t-shirts, and I'll get those to you before the next board meeting. IB educates the whole student. It works with the whole student. And the approaches to learning skills are thinking, communication, social, self-management, and research. The approaches to teaching for the teachers are inquiry-based learning, conceptual understanding, local and global context, effective teamwork and collaboration, differentiated to meet the needs of all learners, and informed by both formative and summative assessment. Now, I'm not going to go through all this, you'll be relieved, but each program they take the approaches to teaching and learning. I sent you the middle years program, and if you look at that, you will see that each of those approaches is divided into categories. And on the right-hand side of that, there are 100 and I think 70-something categories. And every middle year child will be taught that skill in some grade level during his 6th, 7th, or 8th grade. So the teams of teachers get together and they look at it and they say, I think in the English class we'll be able to give and receive meaningful feedback. And so we have a chart, there's a big chart, and the teachers sign up, they put little dots on them. This is what we're going to do in social studies. These are the approaches to learning that we're going to do in social studies. Some of them are used in every single class. Some of them are used in subject-specific classes. But by the time a student finishes the middle years program, they will have been exposed and have confidence in each of those skills. Okay, so a little bit more about IB. Any questions?
It sounds exciting.
It is. I have to brag on y'all. Every single consultant that comes here is still just amazed at the support that Longview ISD is giving this implementation. They said they've never seen such support from the administrators, from the principals, such buy-in from the teachers, and so it's really a pleasure to hear that.
One of the things I really saw when I read through it, reading through my board books, was the fact that you are teaching study skills and metacognition skills. y'all start that at middle school, is that correct?
Well, the primary years has.
At some of those too. I was reading through that, I was so excited because it went back to my 25 years with Learning Foundations and Study for Success, but you had everything I had done there.
Right.
Y'all are doing, and it will make a difference with the kids, everything all the way up to memory techniques,
Right.
which I'm very thrilled to see,
Any other questions?
and how to learn.
Well,
just-
The board needs to understand this is really a big deal. There's no other public
is.
school in the world, not just Texas or the United States, doing this for all their students. None,
I think it's
zero.
wonderful.
Just thank you for your work and your coordination.
Absolutely.
And
Thank
So-
you, it's my pleasure.
Well, and then, okay, so, is it October that all of our training will be complete?
No, you have continued training.
Okay.
We have to have a certain amount of training before we can be authorized.
Okay,
After October, and probably a little bit more training this year, we will have met that criteria.
that's so exciting.
However,
is.
IB recommends, and you do a 5-year self-study with each program. Each school will do that at the end of 5 years of implementation. And you have to show that teachers have been retrained during that time period. And I met with Mr. Williams today, and we're going to work out with Texas IB schools. I want to put in a 5-year plan for what's going to happen over the next 5 years.
That's great.
Thank you, teachers and everybody also, please.
No, they're excited, thank you.
I'm excited. for
Thank
it.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
We're going to get a little update on Plan for Keeps on our student safety and staff
good.
procedures down there in our daycare facility. As of last Thursday, of the 1,200 daycare centers in Texas, 900 of them had reported a positive COVID case.
900 of what?
900 out of 1,200.
Wow.
Have what?
Reported a positive
Oh, wow.
COVID case.
I'm sorry.
for the
COVID
students.
case. So, I wanted Ms. Llewellyn to come and update y'all. It's going to be an ongoing concern, however long we have or don't have school this whole year, at least this whole year. So,
Good evening.
Evening.
So with all of this going on, we had to really think about how we were going to handle and allow parents and get the students in safely, as well as keep our staff safe. Some of the things that we've implemented is we've now have required parents to have a scheduled drop-off and pickup time. And with that scheduled drop-off and pickup time, that allows us to minimize the congestion outside and allow for social distancing as much as possible. Now, we know that social distancing won't happen with the kids, but we will try to maintain that with the parents outside. We've also set up 2 separate entrances, so the childcare side would actually come off of MLK Boulevard, and Early Head Start would come off of Young Street. So that eliminates the congestion with the limited parking that we have. At this time, we only allow parents who are dropping off infants to come into the building. So the kids are screened before they come in, and those parents that have to come in are screened before they come in. Temperatures are checked daily as well with the staff. We have strategically, and we normally keep that anyway, so a lot of these things we already do. We're just sort of raising the bar just a little bit. I want to say a lot. They tell me I go overboard. We have strategically placed sanitizer throughout the building. And that's mainly for the adults because our kids are really too young for the sanitizer for safety issues. So we stress a lot of hand washing. So when they come in on the childcare side, they go directly to the restroom. The teachers take them in there, wash their hands, and then we take them to the classroom. On the Early Head Start side, the teachers are wearing gloves until we get our portable sink station in that entrance, and they take them directly to the classroom. They wash their hands, the teachers dispose of the gloves and wash their hands. As far as what we're doing when we get into the sanitizing piece, I talked about screening, but not only do we screen staff, students, we also have therapists that come to the center. They have to be screened, and we also put in procedures if we do have an employee that's ill, what we do to ensure that we've sanitized that center immediately, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. We've limited what students can bring in, so they cannot bring any personal items, no backpacks, no blankets, Only thing that we ask them to bring are their clothes. We put those clothes, I know, safety.
I know. So it's all fun, but
We have
oh,
enough to take care of all of that.
that's
Which that was
great.
already a policy anyway, they couldn't bring their own toys. But we did
I'm just
allow
sorry
them
about
to
the
bring
blankets.
backpacks. We cut that out for right now.
That's,
So
wow.
we
I'm
provide
impressed.
blankets, and we store those blankets inside of a large Ziploc bag, and we wash them at the end of the week. We do not require the kids wear a mask, but if parents do send the mask, we wash those and keep them and send them home at the end of the week. And those masks are put in personal baggies. All teachers wear masks, they wear shields in the classroom, which is a plus for our recent incident. And then at one point, we had holding rooms, so from 7 to 7:45, kids would gather in the room and wait for their teachers. We no longer have holding rooms, so that we're having to adjust schedules so that they stay with that family, is what we call it, to minimize the amount of moving kids and teachers from classroom to classroom. So if there is an outbreak, it's central to that one classroom. Now, there may be emergency times when we have to do that, but we're not having to do that as much. Constant hand washing, we have set up to where the classrooms, we've minimized the amount of toys that are on the shelf, but what happens is teachers have set up containers in their room so that when kids move from station to station, before another group moves, they remove those toys, the kids go wash their hands, they put the clean toys on the shelf. That eliminates toys being handled by multiple sets of kids. So right now, that process is working. They periodically spray throughout the day. We've purchased special cleaning supplies that are safe for daycare centers, and it minimizes the three-step process that we were using with the bleach solution, but it's just as effective. So they utilize that throughout the day. When they eat breakfast, they clean the tables, they clean the chairs. Right now, the aspect is safety and a lot of cleaning. As long as we keep it clean, then we've covered part of our bases. At the end of the day, it's a deep clean. They wipe down the shelves, spray the rugs, go through the whole process of sanitizing everything again and ready for the next day. And on that, I think you all have a packet. It just talks about the cleaners that we're using throughout the day. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Well, I'm guessing from what Dr. Wilcox said, we have not had any,
We've had one case
One
that
case.
was confirmed today.
right?
We confirmed that to the room. When the teacher actually left, she left ill, automatically put out a
So it was a teacher, not a student?
Right. Put out a fogger, because generally we had a bad case of the flu last year. I purchased foggers to spray the room, so we did that beforehand. Then we shut the room down and they did a deep clean on it on Sunday. We've notified all of the parents.
So now have a protocol for, do you notify all the parents or just the parents within that family group?
We notify all the parents that we have a case of COVID-19, but the parents of the kids that are in there and the teachers that were close to that other teacher, we have to notify them that they have been exposed.
I hope that the employee who's positive, I hope that he or she is doing well and recovers quickly.
She is recovering, and I try to stress that I'm just saying, I think the point that we had our mask on and she had her mask on in that classroom, we may not have sent out anything that would have been harmful for those kids. It's my prayer.
Thank you very much.
Excellent, excellent report. Mr. York, something else we're doing I think is extremely exciting is our lift on our TIA. And I've asked Mr. York to remind me if I don't get him in here often enough to keep y'all updated on everything that we're doing. So, Mr. York.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wilcox, members of the board. This is a quick update on the teacher incentive allotment. Just want to remind you, first of all, that the teacher incentive allotment is fully funded. No local funds are being used to provide that. And also I want to remind you that our initial 54 teachers that we put forth for designations will get our provisional final approval on August the 1st. We'll get that in writing. And what provisional means is it simply means that for the first 2 years we're using the growth component and not the teacher observation component, because we had been doing that with LIFT for several years here under Dr. Wilcox's leadership. Also very excited to let you know that Dr. Hockenberry and I received information from TEA this past week that in year one of the awards, which will be this upcoming school year of 2020-21, Phase 1 teachers, the 54 teachers that we put forth, they're going to receive 2 payments. They're going to receive a funding award in December of 2020 for the 18-19 school year, and an additional payment to these designees will be made in August of 2021 for the 19-20 school year. And the reason for the single year dual payment is due to the lag time in the initial startup of the program from the state level. In years 3 and beyond will be current, and it'll be each year annually. There'll be a payment in August. On Tuesday, July the 7th, I submitted our Phase 2 updated application, and this application expands the eligibility to include kindergarten through 3rd grade reading and math teachers. As you recall, in this first group of 54 teachers, it's grade 4 through the EOC. Now we've expanded it to grades kindergarten through 3rd grade reading and math teachers. The data for determining student growth for this group will come from the Iowa test that we'll be giving. Phase 2 local teacher designations will be determined using a matrix, which is going to measure both components, the T-test, observation, and the student growth component as outlined in state law. Will not be under that first part to begin with, that we were under to begin with. And in subsequent years, this matrix is going to guide us in our local designations for both K through 3 reading and math teachers and grades 4 through EOC STAR tested. In other words, as we move forward and new teachers become eligible for a designation, they'll come under both the teacher observation component and the student growth component. And in conclusion, let me remind you that TEA approved local designations are good for 5 years, and they're identified on the receiving teacher's certificate, and the funding for these teachers moves with the teacher. If they change campuses, the funding moves to the campus that they change to. If they change districts, funding moves with the district. The amount of funding is also recalculated annually because, as you very well know, even here in Longview ISD, all of our campuses have different poverty rates, and it's all based on the poverty rate, different tiers of poverty within that campus. So each year, that award is recalculated. Depending on the designation, you recall the awards range from $3,000 to $32,000. And that's my update for tonight. Could I answer any questions?
That's great. Can you remind me how the first class of 54 teachers was, how were those teachers selected? I can't remember.
Selected on the student growth index, the amount of growth. We took the model that we currently use on LIFT, which looks at teachers who have exceeded 1 year's growth or exceeded 2 years' growth, and we factored that into our decision to make these first determinations based on student growth.
Do these teachers know who they are?
They do not yet because we haven't received the final determination. You folks have the names, but we're not going to release the names. We've been told that verbally that we have approval, but until we get official written approval, we're not saying anything.
And so if a teacher decides to move to Dallas, then this award stays with this because they're part of a cohort is greater than just our district. Is
That's
that
correct.
the understanding?
If the teacher goes to Big Sandy or Dallas or wherever in Texas, that designation is good for 5 years and it travels with it.
Designation, not necessarily the incentive payment.
The incentive pay will be determined by the campus that they go to because poverty rates differ from campus to campus. They'll still get an award, but it may differ based on the poverty of the campus that they're going to. Because recall, this whole teacher incentive allotment is designed We put our very best teachers at our most challenging campuses. So the more poverty rate the campus has, the higher the award for the teacher. And the less poverty rate, the less award for the teacher.
Something that is easy to miss, it's the poverty rate of the campus attendance zone, not the students attending the school, okay? It's the poverty rate of the campus boundary, the attendance zone, not the students attending the campus. Hudson Pep's going to be one of our highest poverty districts.
Thank you, Dr. Wilcox. That's exactly correct. Okay, anything else?
How many teachers you anticipate making over $100,000 next year with the double TIA payments and the lift?
Dr. Wilcox, I'd have to go back and look, but it's going to be several. I'm going to guess 10 teachers, maybe.
Pretty significant. And this is because the board chose to start the lift program in
2013, yes, sir.
2013, and we worked on it for 3 years before that. So this is happening for our teachers and for our students because this board committed to stepping out on a limb and doing this that many years ago. And this year, is it still 7 or 8 districts are all that will receive this in the state?
There's not many, Dr. Wilcox, in this
It
first
will be
cohort.
no more than that. It's a good chance it could be less.
But the action of this board, the foresight of the board and Dr. Wilcox has put Longview ISD way ahead on these kinds of issues. With incentive pay and attracting and retaining the very best teachers.
Thanks, Mr. York. Thank you very much. It's a fun thing to be working on.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Yes, we.
Yes, sir. It?
Thank you, Mr. York.
Thank you.
Dr. Hockenberry? Dr. Hockenberry's got all kinds of information for you also.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You have a report, and you also have a couple of surveys. I don't need to, unless you need me to read word for word what has been presented to you in writing. However, I do want to start with the Back to School 2020 Parent Survey, Staff Survey that has gone out, went out last Thursday. We had immediate feedback and approaching 2,000 responses to our survey. The result of us wanting to put this survey out was the commissioners' rules and expectations for next year that were released last Tuesday, I believe. We knew those were coming in some form or fashion. We had a pretty good idea, but until they were made public, we wanted to hold back on a survey so that we could put it out in a timely fashion that aligned with his words. So, what are the big takeaways that are the most important, urgent, and pressing needs for our district right now as we start planning ahead? The biggest takeaway, in my opinion, is that the preferred learning situation from parents is remote instruction at 34.8%, a hybrid version, which is a combination of on-site and remote, at 31.1%, and then the on-campus at 34.1%. The reason this information is so important is that we are responsible to deliver those 3 methods next year to every single student. The parents get to decide. So this information is being shared with our newly formed task force so that they can understand the scale of the delivery for each of those methods. We are working diligently in the planning process right now, and this survey information is only going to be helping us plan for the scale. A lot of really good information. You know, the staff responses were similar, not exact, but we were surprised a little bit on the responses. I know we looked at a lot of surveys from other districts, and they were only seeing 15 to 20% remote. We are seeing a level much higher than that. It may be the timing of our survey. Our survey, we put it out a little bit closer to the school year, and that was intentional, and things have changed a lot in the last 3 to 4 weeks. But we're very pleased with the results. The information is extremely valuable, and we're gonna use this to move forward with our planning, and our task force is already at work, and this information is helping them along the way. I can answer or try to answer any questions you want from this survey. You know, some of the other the items that are going on in community relations right now, we are extremely active in expanding our reach. We are in contact with other school districts and offering our services to them, and you know, advertising in the Voice, stories in the Voice. We are really pushing the limits and going well beyond the boundaries of Longview ISD, and our early responses are quite positive. We're also looking to expand our responsiveness to the Longview ISD community. We are looking at bilingual. We're bringing on a bilingual communication specialist that's already working for the district. He'll be transitioning in soon. We're very excited about that, because that is a segment of the community that, quite frankly, we don't get much engagement from them. So we have to do a better job reaching out to all segments of the community. We feel like we have a more well-rounded team, and we're going to be able to do so. Coronavirus and COVID-19 has kept us busy as well. We're doing everything we can to put all the information out, and we think that we're doing good with information. We can always do better. If you have any suggestions, we want to hear them. I spoke quickly and fast, but I'll gladly take any questions that you have, any advice that you may have, so that we can do a better job in ensuring that we reach every person that needs to be reached in this community. Did you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Good. Okay.
So
Well, then thank you.
how long will the survey be open?
Which one?
This back-to-school survey, or is it
It's still
closed?
open.
Yeah.
And it will remain open a little while longer.
Okay.
The number of responses are going down each day, but we'll probably keep it open through the rest of the week. We're also thinking of new ways to engage our community. You know, we are pleased with, 2,000 responses. I think in the past, most surveys were getting 400 or 500. The last couple that we've developed have been in the 2,000 range. So I think that tells a lot. Maybe we're asking the right questions right now.
We may do another total survey at some point in August or September, October. As of yesterday, Governor Abbott said if things don't get better, he may call for another shutdown. So we're doing all this planning, understanding that we may be all remote. But Commissioner continues to say we're going to give parents the option to send their kids up here if they want. So, what we're doing.
So what are we doing about the remote learning and putting steps in place so that all of our students might have access to that if needed, especially if the governor, is that Mr. Williams?
I know Mr. Williams had talked to that. We're helping with the planning, and this information from the survey will go toward that. But teachers have already gathered this week, and there's a task force that's been organized, and they're working on those planning, and he can go into more detail. I don't want to get in his lane, unless he wants me to talk about it. I can say what I know, but anyway.
Now, come on in here, Mr. Williams.
Well, he kicked me off the stage, didn't he? Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Good evening.
We have met with the principals, and we're working on two phases. One is called synchronous, and the other is asynchronous planning. They are working together with their schools, with their staff, and trying to come up with options that will be viable as we move forward. That means with that opportunity to use the hybrid model if it is needed. So they're coming up with the plans that will work for each of their campuses. Any questions? I could be more specific.
Good.
Vision within the groups out. Connectivity in these. Oh, no, thank you. Better connectivity, do I need to repeat myself?
No, I
You heard me?
understand.
Okay, but I was just wondering, have we gone outside just our school group to try to see what we can do in the community to expand connectivity? I see that as a critical point in success or not success.
I've spoken with Kelly Hall with the chamber, and she had reached out to one of the, actually to Verizon at the time that this happened. And we have been looking with our technology department, with Brian Pitts, we've been looking at coverage of all of the mobile providers. Currently, T-Mobile has offered the best price for us, and they have the best coverage. But the technology team has been going out and looking at various parts of the city, our northernmost, southernmost, to see where there's coverage and what provider offers the best coverage. Because we know that although T-Mobile will be the one we're using, they provided the best price. Verizon in a small area may have a better coverage.
Right.
AT&T may have a better coverage in another area, because we've even listened to some of you tell us that AT&T doesn't work in certain areas.
Very true.
So,
Yep.
so we're trying to look at all of this so that we can provide access to our families that need it the most. We're starting with our low income and free and reduced families to ensure that that family has a device. And our schools, before school was out, they did surveys to check and see with their parents who needed devices. Because remember, from K through 12, there may be a parent that has 5 kids in all of those separate schools, but they only need one device. With the T-Mobile device, we will get unlimited data, which will be important for if you have 5 kids that are going online to access using devices. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. Have we also reached out to government like Judge Stout and others to apply pressure through that means to help us get the best we can?
We've talked about, and Dr. Hockenberry and I, we've talked about having and discussing with the city at some point in time how we might be able to have city Wi-Fi. Dr. Wilcox will lead that charge with the mayor and the judge.
What about Lakeport and that area, since our district is so?
Well, that's included.
That's included?
Everything
Okay,
that we
okay.
would do.
All the way north to our,
All the way north, all the way
Fabulous.
south,
That's
east and
great.
west.
thank you.
Question, can you hear me clearly, Rose?
Yes.
Yes, you're great.
What percentage of the, of our student population would fall in under the digital divide category at this time, that has restrictions or no connectivity at all. We have a percentage of those students in the district that we have not been able to reach that need to be reached.
Actually, we have the numbers, we haven't calculated it in that way, because when we looked at our students who were on free and reduced lunch, we realized that we were losing a group of students because not all of them apply. So we had to go and use some other factors along with that, the at-risk and other factors that we were able to calculate into that, so that we could reach all of the kids that were there. So the schools had to do individual call-outs and things and check with the kids to see who had access and who did not.
So we don't actually have that.
I can't give you a break.
Individual campuses may have it, but work in progress, I should say.
Yes, we have it broken down by campus, but until kids return and we see who our returning population is, then at that point in time, we'll be able to issue devices to the parents that were on our survey. New parents coming in, we will also have to survey them. But we do have numbers. We just haven't broken it down into percentages.
Virginia? Of course, it would seem to me that the principals would be a good resource as far as knowing which kids, we really need to target, and especially if we can have the hybrid model where we can still have kids coming to the campus. I mean, I would think there'd be a big population of kids that need to be in a classroom with a teacher in there to really maximize what they're going to get out of this. And so maybe the principals could help us determine which families we may need to reach out to and say, your kid needs to be in school here. And we're going to do all the safety precautions we can. I don't know, I would just think they would have a really good handle on who we might need to target specifically.
We did talk to them about that, and I believe Saturday, the workshop.
Yeah.
We're going to go into a little bit more detail. The principals were the ones we reached out to survey to find out which kids, which parents needed it. This is also a part of the model that once we go into the hybrid model, which kids would need additional tutorials, how we would go about reaching the kids to ensure that they are logging on, and the differences between the synchronous and the asynchronous, whether or not they're logging on daily at the time that they should be logging on, because there are funding implications for that as well, but ensuring that we have all of the teachers, for example, coaches, that we're able to use them to follow up with kids to make sure that if you're not logging on and you're not teaching, if a coach is not teaching a specific class or core course, how do we ensure that we're meeting the needs of all of the kids and we're following up? That's just an example of using additional staff on campus. Follow through just to make sure that Horace is getting up in the morning and I'm logging on because the teacher has to take roll. I'm sure you will go into more detail and depth about what we're going to be doing, but the principals are leading the charge with this. That's why they developed their own committees to have conversations to move this forward so that they're doing the right things for kids. We're able to have the teachers identified for the online teaching, and they're developing all of those components.
This school year is going to be so difficult. Can't imagine what y'all are trying to have to wade through and predict and project and so forth, but it would have taken somebody at my house to make me get up and get online to do that if I was a kid, And so that wouldn't have worked for me. And I know we have a lot of kids in our district that they need somebody over making them do it and what have you, so.
The key is the connectivity and ensuring that all kids have connection to Wi-Fi and have a device. and that we start the school year off ready to ensure that they learn how to use the device, that parents know how to use this. There are a lot of things, let me go into this.
How much you want?
I mean, you've covered it. I mean, y'all have got this covered, I know, but just a thought.
Even to the point of having someone available, a help desk for parents in the evenings, so that they can call in if they're having problems with technology or things of that nature. Or
You
even
know
having,
that's gonna happen. You know that'll happen.
or even having teachers, we're thinking outside the box. Even having teachers that teach in the evening that are available for tutorials or to help kids, so that there's that option and that opportunity, because kids will still need help in the evenings. So how do we reach out and help that, and help during that time when we know that parents can't teach that class? Anything else? Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Dennis, anything new on safety?
Evening.
With COVID-19, everything is constantly changing, so we've prepared a number of plans, safety protocols, and procedures. But as we get new information daily from Texas Education Agency, from the governor, from the health department, we are making changes to those. So that's one reason we have not put out a final document yet as far as when we come back to school. But we have the framework of the plan. If we had something in there and they say we can't do this, we'll mark it out, but if we're allowed to do this, then we'll add that in. But there's one thing that we'll assure you, we'll put together the best plan to keep our students and staff as safe as possible.
Thank you for all the work you're doing, because I know you're keeping up to speed on all of it.
Joey, nothing on facilities? All right, let's go to ETAA update.
Wait, so, sorry, we have a question.
Look, have you all visited with the other school districts? Their take on this lack of direction, agency, as to how we should start school back? I mean, what is other districts saying?
Oh,
I'm sorry. What are other districts saying about this? I mean,
yeah, there's a variety of opinions. There are some that are critical of the commissioner for not being more definitive. But if he was, it all changed next week.
well, of course.
And my opinion is the people that are lambasting the commissioner for lack of more direction know that he can't give us any more direction. I personally don't know why they're doing it. He doesn't know what's going to happen. As of yesterday, the governor's saying if things don't change, we're going to shut down.
Right.
So you get into a real definitive, this is the way we're going to start school, and next week or the week after it changes. Then people say, well, you said. So there is not a clear direction from the leadership in the state right now. And I'm going to give you an example. One of the most definitive statements the commissioner made last week was that we're going to require you to have in-class instruction available for any student that wants to come. And then yesterday, the governor says, hey, I might shut everything down. That sends a conflicting message to the parents. Well, the commissioner said, hey, child care is taken care of. You don't have to worry about that. You can go to work in the oil field and, or whatever you need to do, and you work extended hours, and child's going to be at school, and most districts like us have after-school care. And so they're thinking that because that's a pretty definitive statement. Mm-hmm. And then 3 days later, the governor says, hey, we might shut everything down. So it's hard to set anything in stone right now. because the situation is so
So
fluid.
fluid.
Some districts are saying, hey, we want to go with all remote learning. Well, the parents that have to work, and they say there's just no available place we could sit our child every day, and we don't want to leave them unsupervised. They have to go to work, pay the rent, feed their children. But what's the answer? I wish I knew. I don't, and that's what we talk about in the staff every day. Things are fluid, and we're going to have to be fluid, and we're going to have to be flexible, and we're going to have to develop the best plans that we can. I don't know what's going to happen. That's why we're training our staff for remote or face-to-face learning.
Well, I'm listening to parents, not just here, but from several districts, wanting to know why aren't districts specific, like, I've had a few people in Longview, why aren't you more specific about what you're going to do? A month ago when everyone thought we were going to start school the 3rd of August and end June 30th. Mm-hmm. So you've got all this expectation by parents in there. A few of them are calling me. I don't know if anybody else has gotten any calls from parents, but a few of them are calling me wanting to know what are you all doing? Why did you decide to do an 11-month year? Well, we didn't decide to do an 11-month year. That's one of those frameworks that was set. So you go through that whole explanation. Well, when are you going to start? Well, right now, this is where we're scheduled to start, but you listen to the news just like I listen to the news. And so people are expecting us to have concrete answers, and we don't have any concrete direction, any specific directions on how to come up with that. So it is this ever-shifting landscape, and yet people are expecting us to come up with something for them. And I was just curious if that's what other districts that you might have been talking to, or other administrators might have been talking to, if you're getting that same feedback from them. Because I know when I leave here and I go to Nacogdoches, the people that my staff members there are asking me, well, what are you all doing up there? Nacogdoches is doing this, or the other little district right outside of Nacogdoches, they're planning on doing that. I'm sending my kid to school with disinfectant wipes. Well, do you know if your kid is going to go to school yet or not? Yep. So all of this uncertainty has people just in a real tough spot, and yet we're expected to have something specific for them.
Dr. Simmons, it's not going to be better anytime soon.
I absolutely agree. I have no doubt about it. It's going to get. I think it's going to get a lot worse here instead of getting better. But that's just my opinion. Just my opinion, like everybody else. Everybody's got one. They all stink. So anyway, okay. That's all I wanted to know.
Hello, I am Megan Burns. I'm the Deputy of Curriculum and Instruction for ETA. The first thing I want to share with you guys is our discipline report. It should be in y'all's packet for ETAA. If you'll take a look at it, what we've done is we've analyzed the difference in the 18-19 discipline reports and referrals, and then the 19-20 discipline referrals from each of the 5 elementary and middle school campuses. We've also broken it down by demographics. So for the first one, for Forest Park in 18-19, there were 32 total discipline referrals at that campus. And then in the 19-20 school year, there were 39 total referrals. At Everhart in 18-19, there were 42 discipline referrals. And then in 19-20, there were 12. At Johnson McQueen in 18-19, there were 71 discipline referrals. And then in 19-20, there were 82 discipline referrals. 67 of those were in the first semester. At Ware in 18-19, there were 92 discipline referrals. And in 19-20, there were 19. And then at Bramlett in 1819, there were 9 discipline referrals. And then in 1920, there were 11. So I want to bring your attention to two of the kind of the big differences in the school year at Everhart and then at Ware. Whereas Everhart went from 42 to 12, and then Ware went from 92 discipline referrals down to 19 discipline referrals for the school year. And so one of the things that we can attribute it to, because we at ETA, we are very, very data driven. So we're constantly just looking and digging to the data. What is it telling us? And trying to find the root cause. What's the cause? And so at ETA, what we can attribute those things to, especially the drastic change out Ware, and then also at Everhart, it's just a school-wide culture shift. And that's something that we focus on at ETA. It's just taking a look at the leadership, refocusing the leadership on their mission and their vision, and then how are we going to get there? And so one of our cornerstone characteristics at ETA is just to have a safe and inclusive school. And so what that looks like is, when we're in the hallway, what does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? When we're in the hallway for a kid, what does that look like? When we're in the classroom, what's our procedures? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like when we're in the classroom? When we're in the cafeteria. So if we really define what these rules and procedures are for a student, there's no gray area, there's no wiggle room. They know what it looks like when we're walking into the cafeteria. So it alleviates some of those issues and some of those previous referrals from the previous school year. Additionally, some of the things within our system at ETAA is we're constantly looking at our discipline practices within the classroom that allow for students to learn from their behaviors. Bramlett is a showcase school for capturing kids' hearts. Additionally, we are constantly seeking and providing additional professional development and workshops that allow teachers to improve on a positive student-teacher relationship as a classroom disciplinary practice. Because what we can see and what we know is a positive student-teacher relationship. If that kid knows that you love them, that they want you there, that kid will do anything for you. And so we want to make sure, and that's another one of our cornerstone characteristics, is that we have that positive student relationship, and these are how you develop that positive student relationship. This is what it feels like. This is what it looks like. This is what it sounds like within the classroom. Additionally, we incorporate mentoring programs for our targeted students that focus on positive behaviors, academic coaching, and then preparing them for life. Some of the examples are like our bow ties, our boys and bow ties at Forest Park. Every Wednesday at Forest Park, students, the boys within boys and bow ties, they come to school dressed in a nice pressed white shirt and a bow tie. And if they don't have them at school, the mentors of boys and bow ties, they ensure that the student has it. They have a nice pressed white shirt and then also a bow tie. So they're able to participate every single week in boys and bow ties. Additionally, we have military design at the middle school. And then other guest speakers come in and speak to the different students at the different schools. And then lastly, something that we do is we are constantly examining data, discipline data on a regular basis to identify systematic root causes of discipline issues. Like I said, we are data driven, so we're looking at if there are a large number of referrals, why? What is it? What is the root cause? So we can take action upon that. Any questions on the discipline report?
Thank you.
Okay. And then Williams kind of talked about some you guys prepared so far for the first 6 weeks, because we know parents are going to have a choice whether they're going to be talking about class. I want to make sure that child is going to for instructional all of these Monday in a first grade classroom, if they're talking about adding numbers, lesson. This is kind of what we shared. Classroom. That's good. Okay, so what we've done on every single lesson plan, everything that would be shared out with the student is we have a big overview. And so we've split it into 6 weeks. And so within the overview, it defines each week, and then whatever new skill is going to be taught that week, any spiral skills, and then any assignments that are going to be due, that's there on that 6 weeks overview. So essentially it's like a syllabus. Not only is this for the student to access, but it's also for the parent to access. Okay, next please. Okay, at ETA, we're all about safe and inclusive schools. It goes back to our discipline data. So what we do in the first 2 weeks is we focus on rules and procedures. Whether we're on site or we're online, we're gonna focus on rules and procedures and then expectations. So our expectations, what does it look like when we're learning digitally? When are you gonna check in? When are your assignments due? We wanna cover those in the first 2 weeks. Next, please. So what you'll notice in the first 2 weeks, it's all, we're defining what are our rules and expectations. And then on to the third week, the next one. This is when we actually are getting into new and reviewed content. So again, whatever they're working on Monday in reading, where it looks like they're working on characterization in a 6th grade classroom, if they're doing it virtually, they're doing it in the classroom as well. Okay, and like I said, this is what is shared with the students, so everything is hyperlinked. On Monday, helps for parents and students because you want to make it as easy as possible. So there's no barrier to access, but also we're thinking about help desk for parents and then how-tos for parents. We want to make sure that everything is as easily accessible as possible. So it's Monday for, they click on their assignment and it takes them to their activity. And then the kids can actually type in there, and that's what they're submitting. There's their activity. They're doing that in the classroom, and then also they're accessing their learning at home. That's actually what they would share with their teacher. Any questions on that?
I have a question. So when a child is accessing virtual learning, are they reading a plan, a lesson by themselves, or is there a teacher who's instructing them? And like, I'm not familiar enough with the Google Hangout, the Google thing. Will it be a two-way visual process or just a one-way visual process?
It can be two-way, and that's exactly what they're going to make it. And
like where you can mute all the kids and the teacher can instruct?
Absolutely,
okay.
Yes, ma'am. And so we're exploring different ways, because I know we have to take attendance. We're exploring different ways to do that. And one of the ways is at 10 o'clock, we're all signed into Google Hangouts. There's an extension which Ms. Williams has used during the spring closures to take attendance for all the students who are present. And then at 9:30, they're not present, so let's get on the phone. Who can we call to make sure, hey, because we got to get on at 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock, we're doing, our front loading for ELA. So I got to make sure everyone's on at 10 o'clock. So we're exploring different ideas for taking attendance, but we certainly, yes. Any other questions? Okay, all this is, and I promise next is very, very quick, but all this is going to be shared via Google Classroom. That's how the students are going to be accessing their content across every grade level. I know for sure at ETA, students are familiar with it. It's part of the Google Suite, and then also the teachers are familiar with it as well. And if they're not familiar with it, that's okay, because we're going to be familiar with it.
The district has to verify the number of minutes that the students engaged
Right.
this year.
Long way, to say the least.
Go ahead. Classroom. Class information. We have our class information, our class code. This is how the kids are able to access our class, and people who shouldn't be in there cannot get in our classrooms. One thing that I'm glad that Google has added was the Google Meet. That wasn't in there prior to COVID, but now we don't have to get a different code every time. Our kids have the same code. They can log in at the same time every day. Also down here is some more student information, or class information. I chose to, I didn't want my personal phone number out, so I got the Google number so the parents could text or call me, and I could get back with them without them actually having my personal information. So that I added that as well. So very quickly, this first page is where I actually communicate with kids. This is where I do announcements, reminders, any type of encouragement or motivation. If I see kids are not logging on like they should, okay, I'm missing you. We want to see you. Is everything okay? If it's something that they need to reply individually, I actually do it in an email. I won't put personal things because this wall everybody could see here. This is some of the comments we had. Classwork. Students will also see this. This is actually where the assignments are. I actually grouped my assignments by units. Moving forward, I think it's going to be best that we put it in by the week. Easier for the parents and easier for the students. So Ms. Burns had already said at the beginning of the year, the first 2 weeks is pretty much procedures and expectations. You can see from week 1, we actually start implementing the use of Google Classroom. Getting to know you, little things like that. Moving on, resources, very, very, very important, especially for our kids who are going to be at home. They don't see the anchor charts that we have on the walls. So what we've done is added just resources that the students will have on hand. Another thing, we were able to incorporate IB. We have our IB, our approaches to learning, and our learner profile words, because we do use those on Fridays. Every Friday, we do what we call a summary of learning, and the kids have to tell us what IB skills they used throughout the week. So all of that information is in there. Prior to spring break, I had no idea we wouldn't be coming back. But one thing that we did do, I'm trying to move, guys. We added a review. We were supposed to take simulation the week coming, well, 2 weeks after we came back from spring break. It didn't happen. So we had already put in all of our anchor charts. So moving forward, those kids had those resources to use as we finished our last few weeks review. Any questions so far? I mean, this is how we make sure that learning continues at home. Well, we want to make sure that it's very systematic, so everyone who's speaking at that school, whether it be me, who I'm picking up the phone, or a receptionist who's picking up the phone, we know, we can tell the parent, hey, at 9:30, they need to make sure they're logged onto their Google Hangout through their Google Classroom. You don't have the link, let me send you the link. We want to make sure it's very, very systematic, so it's just easily accessible, and then us as administrators, everyone, we know what's going on at all the campuses, just so students are able to access that information. Any other questions?
It's a general question, not just for EPAA, but staff and administrators that are putting projects like this together. Is this being done primarily through remote meetings, through virtual meetings, or is everyone coming into the building trying to get both?
And I can speak for what we've done. Majority of it has been virtual. We've just been meeting through Google Hangout. Again, if the kids are expected to use it, then we have to become very familiar with it as well. And so it's something that, it's kind of like a non-negotiable. That's how we've conducted a lot of our meetings. Very few have been in person. Majority of them have all been virtual. So we can get very familiar with it and really know the ins and the outs of the technology.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
A little update on our current 1882 status for the district. I've had at least twice a week Zoom meetings with the agency since our last meeting, and those will likely continue. We have some just updated contracts for you tonight, and they're just tweaking a few things as we move forward. There's nothing exciting in there as far as the changes are concerned. But as of an hour meeting today, we appear to be, everything is on track and moving forward. I'll be happy to answer any questions that any board members might have. We're excited about the partnership with International Baccalaureate, and we learned a lot of things with ETAA, and we think that we're all going to have a more successful year this year. Looking forward to it, and our jobs training with the Longview Educational partnership, I think, is something else I'm really excited about. And it's going to be a great opportunity for our students to be ready to join the workforce when they leave high school. Any questions on donations? Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Dr. Wilcox. Are there any other ones? All right. I've had a board member ask that I remove items items I and J, the consent agenda, and that we will vote on those separately. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda with I and J being removed?
So move.
I have a motion by Troy Simmons and a second by Ava Welge. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Thank you. There's no opposed. And now, do I have a motion to vote on consent agenda items I and J?
I so move the approval of item I.
I, not I and J, just I.
Just I.
Okay?
Well, you want to do them both together?
Yes, I want to do them together.
Oh, I and J then,
Thank
if you
you.
don't mind me amending the motion.
Yes, I would not mind that.
All right.
Do I have a second? Okay, I have a motion from Troy Simmons and a second by Chris Mack. Is there any discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. All right, thank you very much. All right, action agenda. Consider the approval of our resolution regarding racism and injustice due to racism. I have a motion to approve that. Do I have a second? Who said, who? Thank you. I have a motion by Shan and a Bauer and a second by Ava Welge. Is there any discussion?
Yeah.
Yes.
I did have one question.
Okay.
The resolution that is being presented, is that the latest one?
Correct. It is the latest one that went out last night, and it has the correction of the date of when the ethnic equity policy was adopted, which was May 20th, 2019. There's a correction from what you received last night.
There's another, you said there's another one from yesterday's?
No, this is what you received.
Okay.
Or just some typo correction.
You're my technical. Getting some screens here.
That's all right.
Looking at it. Ask about, you want to run together black?
Oh, that is a typo. It should say and.
Question that I had, oh, I'm sorry, Ava, were you through?
Okay.
The question or comment that I have is, I know that there was one that started off, very first paragraph. Basically, where it talks about standing in solidarity against government, which did a lot of things.
It's still there, Ted. It's still there. It says, whereas current events have enhanced the need for communities and leaders to stand in solidarity against the murder of unarmed black and brown men and women that included the lives of black and brown students and people in the community matter.
So what precipitated, well, I do see the one that says black brown, but what precipitated this was the, George Floyd. And so, I'm trying to incorporate, but this is a little bit, that was the driving factor for this. I didn't want to lose sight of what that driving factor was for the resolution. And inclusiveness, but that was the driving factor. And that we as a district, we must educate all students. What precipitated it was the fact, the culmination. It was that incident. It took here. So, to say black and brown,
Well, it takes the, Ted,
yes, I'm here.
it takes the focus off of the driving factor and the major concern. Not that brown and other minorities are not affected by this, but more than anyone else, black men are affected by this more so than anyone else, and that's what drove this to begin with. And so now we moved to kind of change the focus. And I understand that. I'm not, okay, I understand the need to include, but it's almost each time that the African American community comes to public discourse about our grievances with society makes an effort to change the discourse. I'm not accusing you of that in this.
I understand that.
Okay.
I'm not taking it that way.
But society seems to change the direction or creates another shiny object for us to focus on. And still not address the driving issue and the primary issue that has stoked protests and outrage, not just in the United States, but around the world. And each time we do this, it's like, I don't want to deal with that issue. I want to back off and create something a little easier to handle. And it becomes an affront to to those of us who are adversely affected by that. It's like, no matter what we say, no matter how we say it, no matter how loud we say it and who we say it to, it comes back to somehow or another we need to change the discussion or the emphasis of concern. Your grievance is no longer warranted to have the spotlight put on it in the manner that you've raised. And I'll remind you, I said initially I didn't want to be part of a resolution that was a group of words without any action behind it. I still stand behind that. I think Chris has said he didn't think we need to do it. And from my perspective, I don't want to do it if this is all we're going to do. I said this to you before and did not bite my tongue about it. If all we're going to do is do a resolution, it's going to be posted somewhere in a magazine or in the district's minutes, and not take any action to change the dynamics in the community in which we live, what is the point? What is the point? I appreciate the effort. I appreciate the time you spent. But if we're not going to move as a body to try and get this community to move as a community, what's the point? I think Chris said that we need to stay in our lane.
I'm going to say it again in a minute.
And I got an answer for you, Chris, on that lane stuff. So I want you to hear it, and I want everybody to hear it clearly. In this community, in every other community like this, put this oppressive way of treating us in place. I promise you, the school board, the men on that school board, and we all know they were all men, and we all know that they were all white men. When those that were on the school board got together with those that were on the city council, and those that were on the city council got together with those on the county commissioners, those men got together collectively to make this decision. They have collectively made this decision year in and year out, and it will not change until we collectively move to change it. Now, what you're strategically trying to do now is to say, we're staying in lane. Well, nobody said that when you created the system, and you've ensured that the system stayed in place by now isolating it by being, you're out of your lane, Troy. You're on the school board, you shouldn't be involved in city commissioners' business. Or Troy, you shouldn't be involved in what's going on at the county level. I'll remind you that the first African American elected in this community to serve in office was Robert L. Harper. Okay? Now, maybe you know, maybe you don't know it, but Robert L. Harper was elected a city commissioner in Longview. And amazingly enough, a group of those same white men walked up to his back door and told him he won the election, but he could not serve. Now, maybe that doesn't have any real impact on you, and maybe because it's not cemented in concrete in the electoral polls or in city election records, it is nevertheless a fact, because most of us in our lives, we know our history not by reading a history book, because most of our history is out of that book. And so it is passed on to us orally by those who experienced it. So to sit here and tell me now that I need to not get involved as a body to change the direction of this community is just a way of keeping entrenched the oppressive nature of what you've created here the past 200-300 years. And you don't want to change it, so you keep creating a new mechanism whereby African Americans, black people, are constantly divided over their voice and their representation. So even though we work at trying to change the school district, you have watched yourself, Chris, over the past 20 years as we have tried to move this in one direction and have someone constantly come to us trying to keep us from doing it. Well, if they're doing it in the school district, you know damn well they're doing it at the city. You just don't have anybody in the city that's got a backbone that'll stand up and say to the city that you need to do something different that's inclusive of African Americans. You haven't had anybody at the county level to do the same thing. So the only place that you have seen overt change is right here. Because people have come here and have stayed here fighting to make that change. And you manage to keep everything else in place because you don't want us out of our lane. Well, damn it, I'm out of my lane. This is not going to change until the city changes and until the county changes. If not, we're going to be stuck in the same old rut of doing the same old thing. And when black people have an issue with society, there's going to be somebody that's going to stand up to oppose that. And if it's not somebody white, you're going to find somebody black that's willing to say the same thing that you won't say it. And I am sick as a 69-year-old, becoming a 69-year-old man in this damn society. I am sick and tired of watching that same thing play over year in and year out, crisis in and crisis out. It needs to change, and the only way it's going to change if all of these entities move in a direction to change it. But you refuse to do that because it is giving up a power structure that you have created and maintained throughout your life, throughout your father's life, throughout your grandfather's life. We have lived here and you tell us, and understand this, you tell us to jump 6 feet. No, we jump 6 feet. The rule next year is jump 7. Well, we managed to jump 7. The next year, then you got to jump 8. We jump 8, well, the rule is changed again. You can keep saying we need to stay in our lane. I am going to disagree with you on it. You are absolutely wrong when you say it. What you are doing, and you may not, and I know you will disagree, what you are trying to do and what you're doing with intent is to ensure that the structure that you have survived in is not shared among those of us who have not had an opportunity to participate in it. And you're doing it through a legal maneuver and a political maneuver so that you can say we're doing it by the book. That's the same thing you've done with term limits. You had a man who was elected to the city council, and you got sick and tired of him being elected, so you turned him out. You've heard the discussion among taxpayers here about turning me out. Well, no one said a damn thing about turning Joe Harrison out, and he served 47 years. But as I raise the issues about educating black kids, there are those voices in your community says he's been there too long. He's been there too long. And so what you've done now is created a political system, a structural system by rules and guidelines so we never break the system down. And guess what? You sure as hell ain't gonna never give it up. You're gonna keep it in place. So again, I am, in this particular case, in agreement with you. I will not support a resolution that does not go any further than just being a group of words. And again, Junior, I appreciate everything that you did and anyone else that worked on the resolution, but I made myself clear about it. If all it was going to be was a resolution of words that'll go stand, lay in the corner and collect dust, there is no point. And I've told my friends, don't ask me to come to another prayer meeting about somebody getting shot. Praying for this injustice in this community, because until action is taken by those of us who want it changed, it will not happen. People who don't want it changed will figure out a way to keep it the way that it is, and that's exactly what we're doing.
Junior, I am going to speak against the resolution. It has, to be very clear, it has nothing to do with the content of the resolution. It's the fact that I think we're stepping way out of bounds as in our role as a school district. our primary role is to educate kids. And nobody will convince me that you're ever going to solve the problems that we're talking about other than education. Education is the way to solve the problems that Troy is describing, okay? That's what we do well. Most of the decisions, most of the things that we have talked about tonight have been targeted towards the population that Troy is describing. I'm really not sure why he says we're trying to keep people in their lanes when we have an 80% minority school district. That would mean that just about every decision we make is going towards the minorities in our school district. So I'm really not sure where those comments come from. However,
I gotta disagree with that.
I didn't interrupt you, Troy.
I gotta disagree with that, though.
Okay, well, fine.
I want you to understand that you're making, that is a misstatement.
It's not a mistake.
It is a mistake.
Troy, just please let him finish.
You're right.
All we're doing now is giving fodder to the newspaper. None of our minds are going to change. We've discussed this over and over and over. It's my opinion that we stick to what we do best, and that's educate all kids and stay out of the political arena, because once we make a resolution about this, there's other groups that matter too, okay? And I could go name. Are we going to set a precedent and be prepared to make statements when other groups come and they want to be recognized, or whatever their issue is? Once we cross a line, we've crossed it. We need to stick to what we do, and that's educating kids the best that we can, which I think we do a pretty good job of. That's all I'm going to say.
Like to respond?
We make decisions for every child in this district. It's not, the majority of those decisions are towards 80% of the kids that are in this, it's towards every kid that's in the district. Okay? That was the point I was trying to make there. And you say education is the thing. Well, Chris, you know, I was brought up on the idea that the education would deliver you from, and put you on a social and a structural level equal to anyone else with your same equitable education. But you know what I found out? That's a lie. Okay? I walked into this community 40 years ago. 40 years ago. I walked in, set up, started working, and I was doing hospital dentistry in Palestine, Texas, any day I wanted to, and I have yet to be able to have hospital privileges in this community. And guess what? My degree is not from Harry, as people told me it ought to be. It is not from Howard. My degree is from Ohio State. Okay? And yet, my degree did not get me inside the hospital. Why? Because people who set up this structural inequity in this damn system don't intend for it to happen. And sitting right there in the corner of 503 North 6th Street for the past 30 years, I have seen at least 10 or 12 physicians come by my office wanting to set up an office in that community, not get the same access to hospital privileges that white doctors have. That's what I know. So when you tell me education will do that, education has lifted me up. You darn too, now I will give you that. But it sure as the hell has not made the playing field level. Men keep that field unlevel. And I, for the life of me, cannot figure out what the hell it is that you're so afraid of. I have asked myself this, you gotta be. The only reason men do this is that they're afraid of something. And they don't have the damn guts or the backbones to say what it is they're afraid of. Why do you oppress black men the way that you do? Why do you oppress us in that manner so that we are constantly suffocated? When I say that nobody has put their knee on my neck, no policeman, I truly mean that. I don't have any issues with policemen. But for me to tell you that this community has done its damage to suffocate me, as a black man speaking out for its community, trying to make a living for my kids, trying to deliver the same services that my peers deliver, I can tell you for a fact, I'm not the only one that's going through that. And they will stand up and tell you that if you have the guts and the desire to listen. But you don't want to do that, right? You want to keep the same structure in place because it benefits you. It benefits you and your children.
That is so much crap, Troy. I can't believe that's coming on that, but guess what? I'm not going to argue with you because we've been arguing like this for 20 years. And you're not going to see it my way, and I'm not going to see it your way. So we might as well, Madam President, I'd like to make a motion that we call the question.
We have a motion on the table right now. You can call, yes, we can call the question, but not with a motion.
Yes, that's how it works.
It is. Okay, thanks. Okay, we have a motion to call the question.
Means you have to vote now.
It means we need a second.
Is there a second? Okay. We have a motion by Chris Mack and a second by Amy Wilkie to call the question. All those in favor?
Takes a 2/3 vote.
Just calling the question is saying we want to vote on it now. We're
Right,
not
we're not voting on it.
resolution. We're
Right.
voting
We're
on-
voting on calling the question.
Right. That doesn't mean we're voting on the
I
resolution.
understand that. All those in favor to call the question? Ted, we're voting right now. Ted,
Voting on the resolution?
No.
no,
Question.
we're voting on calling the question.
Calling the question just means we need to take it to a vote now. We're ending
I
discussion.
asked if there was discussion, you may not have heard me. Is there any discussion on calling the question? Okay, all those in favor of calling the question? Ted, how do you vote?
No, well, I wanted to make
You want to what?
an amendment to the resolution. But we have a motion on the floor to call the question,
Okay, and so,
which Robert's rules is there's vote.
You have to vote. You vote
Correct, and we
down,
just-
Otherwise, vote or no.
Right.
we don't have 2/3. We only have, even if I voted, it would be 50-50. So the
So be it.
motion,
So the motion fails.
the motion fails, and the floor is still open for discussion, correct? We have more discussion,
Madam President,
yes.
I would like to go ahead and amend the resolution to have the original wording on that first, second, whereas,
Uh-huh.
that original,
Do you have that wording?
paragraph.
Can I say something right now?
For the board.
The only thing that this is really a reprimand. I sent this out last night, and I would have appreciated it from all the board members if there needed to be changes, that you had contacted me before right now to make those changes. So that's my comment. It is a reprimand. So it is a reprimand. I'm reprimanding the board because I sent this out with enough time for people to make changes before this meeting, that we could have had those changes made, and the board could have been voting on a document where we didn't have to make changes in the middle of a meeting. So I'm reprimanding the board.
I will respond, I do not accept any reprimand.
Okay,
I'm just letting you know right off the bat.
that's fine. I'm gonna have to, this is new to me, y'all gonna have to help me put my thinking cap on. There was a motion on the, floor. Tracy, please remind me who made the motion? No, the original motion that we're still working under. Shane moved and Ava seconded.
Initial.
So in order to make a change in the motion,
Vote on the amendment.
Oh, so that was already on the floor, okay, so
Well, there wasn't an amendment on the floor.
That was my fault.
He just made a motion. He just made, there's been no second.
You can do that, when you gotta vote on the amendment in the
That's
first.
okay.
Sorry, the motion. And that was the discussion. Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay, so if you want to amend it, we have to vote first and then make an amendment? Or can we,
No, you have to vote for the amendment.
Vote on the amendment
Let me
first.
withdraw that, and since there's already a motion on the floor.
okay, but you can move to make an amendment. It needs to be seconded. So, Ted, would you like to keep your amendment or remove it?
I move to amend just that one paragraph.
Okay, is there a second? Ted, your motion fails or it has not been seconded. Okay. Is there any,
The original is on the floor.
okay, is there any more discussion?
I would like to say one thing. My feeling is if we can't agree, we don't.
Is there any more,
You should either be together or not.
thank you. Is there any more discussion? If there's no more discussion, all those in favor of the resolution, say aye. And all those opposed?
All right, could you,
Absolutely. I said all those in favor of the resolution, say aye.
I will be in favor of that motion. Adopt a resolution.
The resolution as it is currently written.
Yes.
Okay, all right. We have one in favor. All those opposed? 3 opposed. Is there any abstentions? Right, I can't. 2 abstentions. The motion does not pass. Right,
Yeah, it fails.
it fails.
Jenny,
Yes,
again, I appreciate the work you did.
I know that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
But I want to say again that I made it perfectly clear where I stood with this to begin with. And so all the work that you put into it, I applaud you for it. But again, that's it.
Right.
All right.
Thank you very much. Do we have, let's see. Joey, it's time for the financial report.
I got this mask on. Can y'all hear me very well? I'd like to first start with the general operating statement for the month of June. The cash and investments stood at $42,391,666. We received revenue of $73,784,193. Yeah. And expenditures to date, $68,614,486 for the general operating. The next statement is going to be the interest and sinking account. For the month of June, we stood at $17,811,660. Revenue is $50,264,697. And we expended $53,955,224. And just to repeat, that includes the bond refunding that we did in the prior months. Next statement, the child nutrition. The cash on hand, $783,075. And year-to-date, the revenue is $3,834,417. And we expended $4,489,083. And that trend will continue, I project, through the end of the year to where we'll actually draw down on our fund balance for the operations of the child nutrition operation this year. Main cause of that would be the closure due to the pandemic. And then, y'all have any questions? Financial report?
Are there any questions on the financial report?
And here in the near term, we'll be giving a draft budget to the board to look at for the 2021 school year. And appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Do we have any board member special reports? And do we have any, anyone who'd like to speak now in the open forum? Okay. If not, then we will convene in closed session under the Texas